Hello and welcome back to Project 380. In this episode I'm going to be installing some ultra racing fender braces. The whole idea of this fender brace is to tie in the A-pillar and the front clip. Believe it or not, there can be quite a bit of flex in this area, due to the fact that most of this is held together with just spot welds. So when you're cornering hard or braking hard, this whole area can flex. With this brace, it's going to tie in the A-pillar to the front clip, hopefully making this a lot stiffer and allowing the suspension to do what the suspension needs to do. This should improve the drivability and the handling of the car. The ultra racing fender braces only come in white, but you know me, I do like a pink accessory. To install the fender brace, we first need to remove the fender, or wing, whatever you would like to call it. No, this is not a California. This is a replacement wing for mine that had rotted out. To be able to remove the fender, we first need to remove the front bumper. I don't have a front bumper at the minute, nor do I have a body kit, as I've been waiting over 7 months for it. So with no bumper installed, I can access all the bolts for the fender. There are 4 holding it on at the top, underneath the bonnet, 2 behind where the bumper would be, then 1 in the door shut, and 2 right underneath attaching it to the sill. And there is 1 nut. It is all the way down in here at the back of the fender. To gain access to this, you will need to turn the wheel, remove the wheel arch liner, and get a big extension all the way down here. Once all the bolts are removed, you can wiggle the fender off. With the fender out of the way, we can now look at how the fender brace fits. The fender brace actually uses the door hinges to attach it to the car. It uses the 2 top bolts, not the nut, and the 2 bottom bolts. And over here, we actually need to make our own hole. So what I'm going to do is bolt it up at the door hinges first, so I can mark out these holes. To remove the hinge bolts, you really want the door closed. Hopefully then the door won't drop that much. To attach the fender brace, I've chosen a slightly longer bolt than what was in it before, and a nice big washer. So I'm not sure whether this is an issue that everyone does have installing these onto an NB, but the very bottom hole down here doesn't quite line up. So what I'm going to have to do is make this hole into a slot. With this temporarily bolted in place, I can now mark the 2 holes at the front where I have to drill it into the chassis. These 2 holes need to be drilled out to 8mm. On the right hand side of the car, you need to be careful while drilling through the chassis, as there are electrical components on the other side. All of my electricals are already out of the way, as they're not actually plugged into the car at the minute. But if yours are still installed, you can simply pull them out of harm's way. Because this is a freshly drilled hole with bare metal, I'm going to take a little bit of paint and just cover the bare metal so it doesn't corrode anymore. While that's drying, I'm going to cut that bottom hole into a slot. Paint's had a little while to dry and I've cut my slot in the bottom hole. So now it's time to install the fender brace. The 4 bolts that attach the fender brace to the hinges are only just nipped for now. We just want them nipped so we can have a little bit of movement at the front to install the 2 front bolts. These are included in the kit. On the left hand side of the car, these are nice and easy to install, but on the right side you have got a fuse box in the way. So if you just take off the nut and bolt that are attaching that to the car, you can move that slightly out of the way, and then you can get your hand behind the chassis and do up the nut. These can be torqued down to 22 foot-pound. Before torquing down the hinge bolts, it's a good idea to check your door alignment. Even though we've kept the door shut and we've kept the top nut on, the door may have dropped slightly. I've been quite lucky with mine, my door hasn't dropped. If your door has dropped, it's pretty easy to fix. Just open the door slightly and just take a trolley jack with a rubber pad or a bit of wood on it. Just take the weight of the door with the jack and then give it a little lift. Then you could go torque up the hinge bolts. Now with the door aligning nicely and closing properly, it's time to torque up the hinge bolts to 22 foot-pound. With all the bolts torqued up, that is the fender brace all fitted. Now it's time to put the fender and bumper back on and go for a drive and test it. That is if your car's working and you've got a body kit. Hopefully installing these is going to improve my handling and hopefully letting the suspension do what the suspension has to do. So that's all for today. If you learned anything or you enjoyed this video, leave us a comment and a like. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new, and I'll catch you in the next one.